You don't have to advertise like that. We all know you're the worst dressed man in the class. I've been working, that's all. These are just work clothes. In the boiler room? On the railroad, shoveling snow. He sat back in the chair. Shoveling railroad snow. Well, that makes sense. We always did that the first term. I pulled off the sweater, under which I was wearing a rain slicker I used to go sailing in, a kind of canvas sack. Phineas just studied it in wordless absorption. I like the cut of it, he finally murmured. I pulled that off, revealing an army fatigue shirt my brother had given me. Very topical, said Phineas through his teeth. After that came off, there was just my undershirt, stained with sweat. He smiled at it for a while, and then said as he heaved himself out of the chair, "There, you should have worn that all day. Just that. That has real taste. The rest of your outfit was just gilding that lily of a sweatshirt." "Glad to hear you like it." "Not at all," he replied ambiguously, reaching for a pair of crutches which leaned against the desk. I took the sight of this all right. I'd seen him on crutches the year before when he broke his ankle playing football. At Devon, crutches had almost as many athletic associations as shoulder pads, and I'd never seen an invalid whose skin glowed with such health, accenting the sharp clarity of his eyes, or one who used his arms and shoulders on crutches, as though on parallel bars, as though he'd do a somersault on them if he felt like it. Phineas vaulted across the room to his cot, yanked back the spread, and then groaned, "Oh, Christ, it's not made up. What is all this crap about no maids?" "No maids," I said. "After all, there's a war on. It's not much of a sacrifice when you think of people starving and being bombed and all the other things." My unselfishness was responding properly to the influences of 1942. In these past months, Phineas and I had grown apart on this. I felt a certain disapproval of him for grumbling about a lost luxury with a war on. "After all," I repeated, "there is a war on." "Is there?" he murmured absently. I didn't pay any attention. He was always speaking when his thoughts were somewhere else, asking rhetorical questions and echoing other people's words. I found some sheets and made up his bed for him. He wasn't a bit sensitive about being helped, not a bit like an invalid striving to seem independent. I put this on the list of things to include when I said some prayers, the first in a long time, that night in bed. Now that Phineas was back, it seemed time to start saying prayers again. After the lights went out, the special quality of my silence let him know that I was saying, and he kept quiet for approximately 3 minutes. Then he began to talk. He never went to sleep without talking first, and he seemed to feel that prayers lasting more than 3 minutes were showing off. God was always unoccupied in Finney's universe, ready to lend an ear any time at all. Anyone who failed to get his message through in 3 minutes, as I sometimes failed to do when trying to impress him, Phineas, with my sanctity, wasn't trying. He was still talking when I fell asleep, and the next morning, through the icy atmosphere which one window raised an inch had admitted to our room, he woke me with the over-indignant shout, "What is all this crap about no maids?" He was sitting up in bed, as though ready to spring out of it, totally and energetically awake. I had to laugh at this indignant outburst, with the strength of 5 people complaining about the service. He threw back his bedclothes and said, "Hand me my crutches, will you?" Until now, in spite of everything, I'd welcomed each new day as though it were a new life, where all past failures and problems were erased, and all future possibilities and joys open and available, to be achieved probably before night fell again. Now, in this winter of snow and crutches with Phineas, I began to know that each morning reasserted the problems of the night before, that sleep suspended all, that changed nothing, that you couldn't make yourself over between dawn and dusk. Phineas, however, didn't believe this. I'm sure he looked down at his leg every morning first thing, as soon as he remembered it, to see if it hadn't been totally restored while he slept. When he found on this first morning back at Devon that it happened still to be crippled and in a cast, he said in his usual self-contained way, "Hand me my crutches, will you?" Brinker Hadley next door always awoke like an express train. There was a gathering rumble through the wall as Brinker reared up in bed, coughed hoarsely, slammed his feet on the floor, pounded through the freezing air to the closet for something in the way of clothes, and thundered down the hall to the bathroom. Today, however, he veered and broke into our room instead. Ready to sign up? He shouted before he was through the door. You ready to Finney! You ready to end what? Pursued Finney from his bed. Who's ready to sign and end what? Finney, by God, you're back. Sure, confirmed Finney with a slight pleased grin. So, Brinker curled his lip at me. Your little plot didn't work so well after all. What's he talking about? Said Finney as I thrust his crutches beneath his shoulders. Just talking. But there was no mistaking the shield of remoteness in his face and voice. He wanted me around. The war then passed away from me, and dreams of enlistment and escape and a clean start lost their meaning for me. Sure, you can manage the shower all right, I said, but what difference does it make? Come on, Brinker's always getting there first. Enlist? What a nutty idea. It's just Brinker wanting to get there first again. I wouldn't enlist with you if you were General MacArthur's eldest son. Brinker reared back arrogantly. And who do you think I am? But Finney hadn't heard that. His face had broken into a wide and dazzled smile at what I had said, lighting up his whole face. Enlist, I drove on. I wouldn't enlist with you if you were Elliot Roosevelt. First cousin, said Brinker over his chin, once removed. He wouldn't enlist with you, Finney plunged in, if you were Madame Chiang Kai-shek. Well, I qualified in an undertone. He really is Madame Chiang Kai-shek. Well, fan my brow, cried Finney, giving us his stunned look of total appalled, horrified amazement. Who would have thought that? Chinese, the Yellow Peril, right here at Devon. And as far as the history of the class of 1943 at the Devon School is concerned, this was the only part of our conversation worth preserving. Brinker Hadley had been tagged with a nickname at last, after 4 years of creating them for others and eluding one himself. Yellow